Bruce McIntoon does it all. Today we're working on removing the deck railing. We're also going to be removing the deck boards. So the stairs still have their railings on them. I already took off some of the top rails and the hand railing on the sides. One thing you'll see on this deck is everything is rotted except for the boards underneath. So we'll be keeping all the boards underneath. We'll be adding some more supports too. You can see those nuts and bolts. You can take the nuts off of those before you do anything. They're not going to fall down until you bang those long threaded carriage bolts out. Once those come out, then the posts will come off real easily. Right now these are the old style where they're notched, so they'll still sit up there a little bit, but they will be very top heavy, so you got to be ready to grab them when they come off. Anyways, get all those off and the deck boards can come off. Should be getting the material delivered here pretty soon, so I'd be able to start putting some of the new things up before you get everything torn off. Otherwise, what you do is you pry loose the boards, you knock off the screws so that they're not sticking up, so you're not going to have to worry about standing on them, and then you can leave the old boards up there until you get to the point where the new boards can go in, so you've got something to stand on. Alright, BruceDoesItAll.com. It's my website. Check it out. Today we're replacing deck boards and fascia on a deck that had been stained with most likely a bear stain, which doesn't usually work very well. Anyways, today we're putting up the fascia boards on the outside to cover up the old stuff, because it will be a lot faster than just trying to pressure wash and sand and use chemicals to try and get the old stain / paint off. So you can see the red is the old color and the new is a brown treated deck board, but it does look a lot like cedar. Some call it a cedar tone. I'm going to flip this around and we'll get a better. Okay, so that one's nailed up. And then I'm going to nail on this board here, and then I'll cut my angle pieces, get those filled in. And we're going to be doing this on all the stairs too. I got all the railings pulled off on the stairs now. I have some of the deck boards pulled out. I don't take all of them out because I like to have something to stand on while I'm working up there. But I did loosen most of the screws, but not all of them, because the deck is the way your joists come out. When the deck boards are screwed across, they help keep those boards spaced appropriately. I know these have some blocking underneath them, but sometimes the whole thing will wiggle back and forth this way if you take all the deck boards out. So I've loosened up pretty much from here all the way out, but I've left them up there to walk on. So once I get the outside framing on, I'll put the posts up, because the posts have to go inside. Like this post is going to actually go right inside here. So you got to put them inside the framing now. Makes it a lot stronger. And then once I've got those in, I'll box around them with framing on the underneath side, and then we'll notch our deck boards around the posts. We'll make it a lot more solid. Fortunately, this deck is 3.5 feet wide already, so when you move the post from the outside to the inside, it's not changing the actual spacing of the deck walking space all that much. So I'm going to finish putting up these boards, and what I'm just using my gun nailer to nail those on. Bruce McIntoon does it all. Tip of the day for you contractors: you want to keep your customers happy. I could leave that pile of lumber, but like this pile, I'm going to pick it all up get it in the dumpster, make it so it's a little nicer looking and safer for their kids if they decide to come outside and play. Now some people say that's a lot of waste of time by cleaning up every night. You can just do it at the end of the job, but when you're doing a deck job and that job is going to be lasting for a week or so, or even if it's just 2 days, 3 days, customers always like it when you clean up after yourself. So, tip of the day. Day 3. You got the lower stairs mostly put back together. We got a couple boards we got to notch out for the posts. The posts are all installed. And we got all the other stair posts on. In fact, all posts are on. And we started putting on the angled decking. A little sawdust there, but so this edge is cut straight. That still needs to be cut on that side, and all the rest of these deck boards, there's probably 6 of them that are still screwed down over there just to keep it straight, all the joists straight. So tomorrow we'll get all the stairs done. Should be able to get them all cut and screwed in as long as the material shows up for the face boards. That's not here. So anyways, good news is our wood pile is getting smaller. So this here is all the decking for the top. That's the decking for the stairs. I need more of that board right there, that 1x8. That's for the face of the stairs. And then these are all for the 2x4s. Those are going to be what's going to hold the aluminum spindles, the top and the bottom rails, and then the 2x6 is going to go on top of it, so they got a nice place to put their drinks up at the top and something to hold on to when they go down the stairs. There's also a hand railing that they always want to put on too, but this is all the material I've got for now, so we'll see you later. Alright, got the stairs all done, minus the railings, but got our transition platform is all done. All the way up to this joint. So now we just got to run the rest of it. Once I get the deck boards done up to about that post, then that will get me attached pretty far over there. And then I can undo the screws on these ones, because then it'll have enough strength with all the cross boards from the deck boards that are screwed down that the deck won't really move much, if at all. And if these move a little bit, it won't be that big a deal, because they've got the blocking in underneath already, so they really won't go anywhere, because I'll have some of those that are blocked will already be screwed in to the new boards, so the deck won't move. Or should I say, not the deck so much as the joists. The joists are the thing that I'm worried about wiggling once I take the screws out, because there's not much holding for that long stretch. There's not a lot holding the tops of these boards from twisting. But like I said, once I've got these boards in, that's screwed down, they won't be able to twist anymore. They'll only be probably the last 3 maybe that have the potential for possibly moving, but I won't be standing on any of those because I will work from this end over. So I'll go this way, and by the time I get to any of those, I'll already have some screwed down. So that's the end of day 4. It's already a much nicer looking deck, close to getting all the decking on, and the railing, once that goes on, it's going to look fantastic with the black spindles. Day 5. All the old boards are now gone. We had a bunch of rain this morning, so we didn't get started too early, but only got to notch 2 more posts, and then all of the floor decking will be down. And I'll go around like I did with this, and I'll just take the saw and we'll cut a line right along the edge. And when you're cutting your line, cutting these boards off, you don't want to be on the outside edge of that board because these boards aren't always straight. So if you cut a straight line on the outside edge, and then when you go down on the bottom and you look up, you'll see a wiggly looking edge. Even if your line is straight, it may make the boards look crooked. So what you want to do is just have a 1/8 of an inch or so on the edge of the boards in. So when you're looking at it from the bottom, since this one doesn't have an outside fascia, you want it to be just inside that edge, because otherwise you can see the edge of these boards as they stick over. So you just want to cut those all off just inside that board, the outside framing joist board. It gives it a nice finish. Middle of day 6. Got the decking done. Got it cut off all the way around. So the next step is to start cutting the railing. Gonna put a 2x4 towards the bottom, 2x4 towards the top. The black spindles go in between. There's little black connectors that I've got. I'll show you those in a little bit, and we'll show you how we mark them. I found this to be one of the best ways to go with the railing, and this type of connector is one of the better ones out there. The way they connect together, you just usually don't have too many issues with them coming apart ever, and they don't spin too much, so they don't blow in the wind. Whereas I used to connect them, I'd drill the hole for every spindle and put it into the wood, but the one thing I don't like about that is now water can get inside that wood and sit, and eventually it could rot. It doesn't happen very much because those spindles are in there pretty tight, but I like this method a little better. Here we got our 2x4s cut from between the posts. The next thing you got to do is make your marks for your spindles, because you want them all to look nice and even. And even on each edge, you want them to line up so they're all very similar. You don't want to have this post right up against the 4x4 and then have that one 3 inches away, because it just doesn't look nice. So in order to make sure that all of your railings end up looking that nice, what you do is you take your spindles or your tape measure and mark your spindles. And all you have to do to make this very easy, take your tape measure, lay it on the post. Now 64, I know that that's going to be one of the 4-inch marks, because every 16 inches is one of those red marks. that out. Anyways, 60 is going to be your 4-inch mark. 64. So in order to get 64 where you need it so they're not odd, you start sliding this back so you end up, and then you'll look on that end where the 4 inches are at. And I've already got this one marked out, so I know that it's 2 3/4 inches on each side. Makes it perfectly even. So then once you've got that marked, you can go ahead and mark every 4 inches all the way across. I usually just slide the tape measure to my first mark. So once I've got my tape measure on my first mark, I always take, this is my bottom 2x4, and I know this is my top, but this is actually the bottom of the top 2x4. So you flip, you get it so the best looking side is going to be up facing into the deck. So in order to do that, you flip it down. So this is the bottom side of the top board, and this is the top side of the bottom board. And then you just make your marks all the way across. And then after you get those all marked, you need to mark the center on the 2x4. And so I'll use my square. I'll go to 3/4 of an inch. And at every one of those marks, you just make a mark. And then you just slide the square along as you go and keep marking them out. That's how to do it really fast. So I'm going to get these ones marked out, and then I use a decorator for my balusters. These are pretty nice on the flat ones. On your regular deck, you just put your screw in the middle, and then you, on those marks, you'll set your screw right into the center of the little X that you made, and then screw it down, and that'll be centered. And then once you get done marking all those out and get them all screwed in, then you just take your posts, your pipes, and mark them, set them right on top, and I'll show you that in a second. So from a top-down perspective, put your post on, tap it down, and you finish running those. Make sure you tap them down good so they don't fall off. And there you got those little plastic grooves that are sticking out there. They wedge onto that pipe so it can't move. So it's a really nice system. I like it a lot. That's the decorator. Visually, once the top board goes on, there's only one screw at the bottom, which those holes swell up usually over time, and you really don't notice those screws anymore. So 2 more sections tonight and be done. End of day 6. Get all the straight upper railing spindles installed. Just got to cap it, get the 2 corner pieces. Got a couple more pieces cut down there ready for the spindles. And we just got to cut the railing tomorrow. Should be wrapping up. So that's it for today. Alright, day 7, we're working on the stairs railing. So I'm going to show you what you need to do on the stairs when you're marking them out so they come out correctly. So once you've got them cut this bottom one and this top one, they're cut exactly the same. As long as you put the posts in nice and level, it'll work out real nice. If you didn't put them in, if this post doesn't go straight up and down, if it like angles out this way, you're going to have some trouble getting these in here. So that's why it's really important when you put your posts in to make sure you use a level, get them straight up and down. If they're in and out this way a little bit, that's not the end of the world, but having them so that they're straight up and down going this way, so when you put your railing in between, they hit exactly. But most of the time, if you put your stair stringers in properly, you're going to end up with pretty straight in both directions. Now, this project, these stair stringers were already here, so if there's a little wiggle in it, there's not much I can do with that, especially because they're older, they've twisted a little bit. You can put wedges on them to straighten them out. That way they'll be straight up and down in both directions if you put some wedges on there. But a lot of times those wedges fall out if it doesn't happen to work out perfectly where it can be above the screw, but if it's below the screw, sometimes they're going to fall out anyways. Alright, so to mark these, you're going to take this board and you're going to flip it straight down, and then you'll measure down just like we did on the other ones. Find your center mark. Now when you mark these out, you're going to go at 4.5. I found 4.5 works out pretty nice, because when you take the angle and then you straighten it out, and once your spindles are going straight up and down like that, if you put it at 4 inches on center, they're going to end up being really close together. Let me grab my tape measure. So even with a 4.5 inch mark, we're ending up with about a 3 inch gap, which is just slightly more than what the level ones are, 3.25. So that's pretty close. So 4.5 to the center of where you're going to screw down the little angle brackets. So you can see this version has got an angle, and when you install them, you're going to want to put it you want to have the board at the angle, and then try and put the screw in straight up and down as much as you can, and that will help keep this bracket, when it goes on, right over your mark. If you put it in at too much of an angle, you might end up pulling it down or up, and then when you go to put your spindles in, if these things slide down or up a little bit, it ends up creating little gaps on the tops or the bottoms of where these little brackets go. So you want to be as careful as you can when you install those. And the other thing, when you actually go to put the screws in, what I found is taking this top board, if you spin it so that the angles are the same, that's how you'll make sure that you put them, the angle that's on these little brackets, it'll make sure they go in the right direction. If you try to go the other way, you're going to have to screw them in up at an angle like this, and I've just found that to be a little bit more difficult. It's a lot easier to just spin them, put them all the same way, and just remember which one is your bottom, which it's always going to be that one. I mean, it really shouldn't affect it one way or the other than if you have if you looked at the boards before you cut them, I always try to make sure that if there's any imperfections, they're either to the outside or they're to the top, because the top rail will end up going on top of it and covering up. So little things to try and look for and think about when you're putting your railing together. There's a whole lot of things that if somebody's doing it on their own, they look at a deck that a professional does and they wonder how they get it to be so tight and not have all kinds of crazy gaps. And I'll show you the neighbors. See how their spindle is hanging out? Somebody didn't put something together properly. So that's why you go with professional, or you make sure you find all the information you can online. BruceDoesItAll.com. Here's a tip on when you're screwing in your railings. On the tops of these, I'll go ahead and put a screw in at an angle down into the 4x4 or 6x6, whatever you're screwing into. And then on the, I always put one here and one here, but on the inside face where the railing is, I don't put them in there. On the top rail, I'll put it on the outside at an angle, because I'm going to be putting a board over the top of this, so that screw is actually going to be covered up from rain. So I try not to put too many screws in on the top face. But when you go to the stairs, I'll put one in here, and then when you get to the bottom here, go ahead and put that screw in right there, and then I'll go on to the outside at day 7, all wrapped up. Alright, if you got any questions, there's some different techniques and different corners that you can use. It all depends on what the framing is on the deck that you're working on. Sometimes you have to make some different decisions, different cuts in different places, but it's always good to put a little angle cut whenever the boards end, so you don't have the board just sticking straight out unless it's going straight into another board that's just as far out. So there we go.